The brave men and women who have served our country faithfully often need our help to successfully transition back into civilian life. Brave Radio is here to highlight veterans and the companies who are making a difference in our veteran community. And now, the host of Brave Radio, Eve Nasby.
Welcome to Brave Radio, where we're focused on engaging our veterans and making a difference in our business community. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here to highlight the best and brightest that San Diego and this nation have to offer. We have a great show planned today, so let's get started. Welcome to our good, long-standing friend, John Funk.
Eve, thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure to be with you every Monday.
It's a pleasure to have you here. It makes my day. Easter Seals of Southern California, we have Rebecca Meeks, who is your guest this morning.
Good morning, Eve.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here, Rebecca. You have a great story, so I'm eager to jump into this. So, John, last week we gave an overview of the techniques and recommendations that Easter Seals of Southern California uses when assisting veterans with the transition process. But this week, we're going to continue the discussion and bring in, we have Rebecca here, to talk about how she's interviewing for a different type of position. And that's not for a job, but it's for USD's Clinical Psychology Graduate Program. And you have to listen to the whole interview to see if she actually got the spot. So, John, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thanks, Eve. Last week, we talked a lot about the interview process and really making sure that you prepare properly, do your homework, know the company that you're going to work with, right, understand the position requirements, and then find relatable stories so you can share your experiences in a context that the employer will see how you fit into their organization and what you can do. Mm-hmm. Rebecca's situation is a little bit different, and that in preparation for her interview at USD for this graduate school program, a lot of it was how she was going to be able to tell her story in a context so she could kind of relate those experiences to why she would be such a quality individual for them to have as part of their graduate school.
Right, because you weren't, Rebecca, coming in from having your bachelor's degree and then transitioning into getting your master's. It was 13 years from your bachelor's to your master's. And oh, by the way, you've been working for our United States Navy this whole time, right? So it's a different set of challenges that you had. And so how did you feel going into this? I think talk about that group interview that you had, kind of intimidating?
It was extremely intimidating. I wasn't quite sure of the questions they were going to ask. Fortunately, I had John on my team to help me out. I have another friend of mine who was taking a class with me. She has her doctorate in counseling. So I was able to run questions by her as well to ask her opinion on things.
Give our listeners an idea of your background. We talked about you as a person who was under the tutelage of your Norwegian father. You're throwing bales of hay. Tell that story of how you got into the military, what you wanted to do, and how that helped you get to where you are today.
So I was raised on kind of a dirt farm in Wyoming. Gets very cold there. So by the time I was 7, I had a lot of chores outside, chopping a hole in the ice for the cows and throwing hay bales around, irrigating and cutting hay, throwing hay in the summer, herding cows up into the mountains for grazing so we could grow crops in the summer. And I went to college. I actually had an equestrian scholarship that I took for about 2 years. Unfortunately, I was not mature enough to follow that scholarship through, and I wanted the opportunity to get on my own feet. I didn't want to have to go back home to my father, so I chose the military. I come from a military family. All of us have been Navy and Marine, so for me, I wanted to join the Marine Corps because I just felt like it suited me. I grew up with guns. So, I was an avid hunter and enjoyed shooting. It was a family event for us. I mean, if you looked at our freezer growing up, there was no beef or pork or chicken. It was all game meat. That's how I was raised. So, so when I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, he said that I could do supplier admin. They had a lot of limitations on MOSs for women at the time. And I don't really care for paperwork, especially after my first college endeavor. So I went to the Navy recruiter and they said, well, you could be a damage controlman, which is a firefighter. And I very happily accepted that position.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, she's a beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, wants to do firefighting. And that is not driving around on a red fire truck with a Dalmatian next to you. So it's kind of different. So tell us how different that really is.
Well, the main difference in shipboard firefighting is there's nowhere to run. If there's a casualty, you fight or you die. It's that simple. That's that is our war zone. So for a civilian firefighter, they can allow things to burn if, they can control that area. For us, we can't.
Right.
So, and metal is essentially like an oven, so it gets extremely hot. And there's other casualties we face as well. That's firefighting is number one, but you also deal with flooding and toxic gases and chemical, biological, radiological warfare defense. And the whole crew is essentially basically trained how to do that. Us damage controlmen, we kind of lead them.
Right.
We're the more knowledgeable one to lead them in the efforts. So I chose damage control. And I've spent the last 20 years, in the Navy doing that job. The last little bit of my career, probably the last half decade or so, I was more focused on emergency management here for the base at Naval Base San Diego. And
that's awesome. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here with our good friend Rebecca Meeks and John Funk from Easter Seals of Southern California. John, she's got an amazing background, and now you're changing everything. You're no longer doing firefighting. You're going back to school. So, John, tell us how you actually helped her prepare for this new chapter in her life.
Well, when we first connected, Rebecca was already involved in the application process for this USD graduate school program. So in the classic sense of networking, Rebecca had a sailor friend who's had a child that was actually being taught in my wife's 4th grade class that she teaches.
That is networking.
Right? So that's always the case, right? There's, hey, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and that's really how the networking connection. So that's a good study in just don't be hesitant as a transitioning veteran to express what it is that you're looking for, because your colleagues, your family members, they can help connect you to the right resources, because we all want to, everybody wants to help each other. I'm a real strong believer in that. So when we first connected, we worked a lot through Rebecca's application. In some ways, it was similar to the job search in that the school wanted a resume. They wanted a personal statement, classic, but we prepared that very similar to kind of a cover letter, if you will, kind of a way to express your passion. And in Rebecca's case, because she has such a very unique background, and she was so tremendously successful in a very challenging field, especially for a female sailor at the time, because when she came in the Navy, we had just introduced female onto combatant ships. So she got thrown into the throes of all of that significant change in our Navy's cultural shift in the 90s. So we spent a lot of time on just helping her tell her story, but helping her tell her story in a very clear, succinct, and direct way. So we did that through the application process, and then we just had a continuation of that when it was coming time for her to prepare for the interview.
So did you guys do role playing with the questions back and forth and help her kind of form her answers? Or did you have somebody else in your world, Rebecca, that helped you with that?
No, we didn't role play. John was a great mentor in the fact that I kind of ran things by him. My interview was a little bit different, I think, because it was a group interview. It wasn't an individual interview. So he gave me some pointers and some things to think about. And I took notes, and I reached back to the doctor that I mentioned earlier about, some advice she could give me. And the advice that she gave me, and I shared with John prior or during the conversation where we met and discussed the interview, was that because it is counseling, they wanted to essentially see that you had social skills and how you would act in that group setting. So those are the things that we kind of went over and covered. But he did talk to me about, and he was I don't know what I would have done without him, actually. He was very good about breaking things down that I've done. And, hey, you've already been a counselor for 12 years. That's what a Navy Chief Petty Officer does, and I had to take a look at myself too, because I can be very hard, abrasive. Those kind of adjectives. And I know that that's not necessarily a great trait in counseling. It depends on where you are and where you're working, like, for example, inmates, or, certain times that's necessary. But I had to take a good look at that and kind of adjust my personality slightly before going into that interview.
And I think it's important for our listeners to know that these veterans that you see everywhere are very humble. You work in a team. It's never about you, what you accomplished. There's no I in team, and that's true in the military. And so you need somebody like John Funk from Easter Seals of Southern California to come into your world and pull that information out of you. And we see that time and time and time again. So tell us the rest of the story. How did the interview? What was the end result of the interview?
Well, the interview was, there was 25 people there. I was in a group of 5. I was the only one who was not still currently in college. The other 4 that was in my group are graduating this spring, so they're in their early 20s. And they're applying to transition into their graduate program, which was a little bit intimidating. But through the process, I was the only one that could really offer life experience. Mm-hmm. And I brought that to the table. And for the veterans that are out there listening or anybody else, we bring a set of skills that other people just do not have. And some of the things you mentioned, teamwork, wanting to help, the fact that we have survived, and most of us now at this point in the last 13 plus years, we've been at war and combat stressful environments, and we've succeeded and been successful. Mm-hmm. We definitely bring things to the table. And, I had to sit back. John helped me sit back and look at those things and reevaluate. And, I can offer that into the civilian community.
Well, thank you.
So after that interview this last Thursday, a couple days ago, I got my acceptance letter.
Yes. So, congratulations.
Thank
the crowd
you very
goes
much.
wild. That's awesome. We are almost out of time. John, would you like to add anything?
I think USD made a fantastic decision. I mean, Rebecca's really going to enhance that academic environment. And that was actually one of the things that we focused on in the interview, was helping Rebecca see how her experiences really were going to be able to enhance the whole academic environment, that she would not only be a good student, but she could be a good teacher and mentor to her classmates, kind of in that graduate school seminar where you're all learning from each other as much as you're learning from the professors.
Right. Well, I think those who are listening today might have gotten a little bit of inspiration from you, Rebecca. So thank you for sharing your story. And John, would you please tell our listeners out there how they can get a hold of Easter Seals of Southern California in case they or someone they know needs the same help that you were able to give to Rebecca?
Well, we have a customized employment support program. And so as veterans are seeking to define themselves and then connect with employment opportunities, we'd be more than happy to extend our services to them. And we can be found at easterseals.com/SouthernCal. So again, that's easterseals.com/SouthernCal.
John, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eve.
Thanks.
You're listening to Brave Radio, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, and we will be right back after this short break. Don't go away. Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the Brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.US.
Easter Seals Work First Military and Veteran Services provides free one-on-one personalized employment assistance for local veterans through their Bob Hope Veteran Support Program. Easter Seals' team of employment specialists is dedicated to achieving successful, long-term job placements that benefit both the veteran and the employer. Learn more about how you can receive services, connect with a future employee, or make a donation by visiting easterseals.com/SouthernCal. That's easterseals.com/SouthernCal.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased and man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who can just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
You know, there's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Merit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today. Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. I'm here in studio with Carl Sheeler. Welcome, Carl.
It's a pleasure to be here, Eve.
We are absolutely honored to have you here. I think you're based out of Orange County, right?
I live in Orange County, spend the majority of my time in Century City, Los Angeles, and also here in lovely downtown San Diego.
We can't say
the exception
sunny.
Today.
No, exactly. Well, Carl, first of all, you're an amazingly well-accomplished business professional. We're going to talk about that. But I want to first focus on your foundation, and that is your career in the military. Can you talk about how you got into the military, why you got into the military, and how that's helped you to be who you are today?
In 30 seconds or less?
In 30 seconds or less. We've got 10 minutes. Go on.
The short answer is actually from my Marine brethren. I actually had applied and been accepted to the U.S. Air Force Academy. I received the senatorial and congressional nomination. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I broke my wrist just prior to going to Colorado. So I became NPQ. Those of you who are familiar with that is not physically qualified. So I had the option of reapplying the following year.
Okay.
Fast forward, after completing my undergraduate, I applied to OCS, although I was supposed to go to the Navy because the Navy offered both intel and being a pilot, which is what I had aspired to do. But the Marines, obviously, if you could be one of us, really what got me hook, line, and sinker. Mm-hmm. I was one of 12 people from Chicago that went to the OCS program, the only one that completed that. Anybody that's familiar with that program other than the PLC, it's used as the first cut for vetting individuals that might become future leaders, officers in the Marine Corps. 1 out of 12. Well, at least in my group. That's nothing against Chicago, just put that way.
No. So then what did you do while you were in the Marines, and how long were you there?
A total period of time is 10 years, both active duty and reserves. I did what they told you not to do, which is you're supposed to give your first, second, and third choice as well as your first, second, and third duty station. And I put down the same response in all three places. Again, kind of giving you an indication about pushing the envelope a little bit. But I applied to be a tank officer and to be stationed at Camp Pendleton, and I ended up getting both my MOS, military occupational specialty, as well as my duty station. Unfortunately, when I reported, and tanks being a relatively small segment of the overall Marine Corps, I ended up becoming a liaison officer with 1st Recon for several months. Actually had some fun there, and then became a tank officer, platoon commander. Ultimately became a XO for the AT-TOW, which is the anti-tank tow missile company, and that had 330 Marines. It's normally a captain's billet. I was a first lieutenant at the time, and then I ended up becoming a training officer at the base. Ultimately took over as a company commander of an LAV company in the reserves. Unfortunately, I had some skills, particularly in strategy. So I ended up getting a lot of training at the LTC PAC, which for those of you who are familiar with that, that's here in Coronado. And those are mostly for flag grade officers. and ended up helping draft new policies for Intel for Nimitz Navy Marine Intelligence Training Center.
You still remember all those acronyms. That's
only briefly. I can't remember the names of my kids, but those
you got those.
Remember.
Yes. All right.
So spent a fair amount of time between MCITC, which is the Marine Corps Command and Development Center. I had the opportunity to write part of the Field Marine manual for MOUT operations with mobile operations, urban terrain, and fast forward, got activated for Desert Storm. After Desert Storm, serving as a staff officer. Supposed to be a tank officer, got pulled off the line because of my classification, and ended up working in the G3 staff for the 1st MEF Marine Expeditionary Force. When we returned, I ended up actually at Camp Lejeune doing transitions of both Marines enlisted and officers into the civilian workforce, in part because I had been on active duty as well as in the reserve, so had been comfortable with that transition. But that was a little bit more than 3 minutes.
It's okay. You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ, AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here in studio with Carl Sheeler, author, businessman. He's a strategist. He's incredible. And we've just talked about your background as a military person. I think I made you blush when I said you're incredible. And that's just all a part of this humility, I think, that all of our military folks bring. So tell me, how did you get from Marines, and I heard author, you're writing stuff in the military that's kind of translated into this life. Talk about that transition and help us to be inspired, because you have done an amazing job with your life with this foundation as a military person. And I think there's a lot of military folks out there that would be encouraged by your story.
It's actually a very insightful question. Thank you for asking it, Eve. Having lived on both sides of the tracks, I espouse the idea that there's as much knowledge that can be garnered from the street as there can be through formal education. So a lot of it was OJT, learning how to lead, and also learning how to follow, learning how to sift the relevant from the minutia. And as one starts to think about all those skill sets to solve problems, both in the military, where particularly if you're in the combat arms, you don't have the option of saying, let me get consensus and think about it right. While they're also shooting at me.
Right.
So that's a luxury that you do during training, so that you get people trained to think very, very quickly, again, culling out the noise so that they can be responsive and hopefully plan. Or as Michael Tyson likes to say, planning is great until you get punched in the face, right. Which is also true here too. So most businesses tend to think in terms of risk adversity as opposed to how do you seize an opportunity.
Right.
And so that learning manifests itself in both thinking about situations as they are most likely to occur and saying, well, what would I do if confronted with that? If I use the example of Shark Tank, which I think a lot of people have probably seen at least a few episodes, sometimes you watch somebody that is clearly they're prepped, they're ready to go, they know the right answers, they know what the shark's going to ask for, and many of them will reveal that they've watched every episode.
Oh, okay.
So in many ways, part of what the military teaches you how to prepare. And when you come prepared, whether it be for a transition into a job or to solve a problem, show that you're already putting skin in the game. That's part of the secret sauce. And the way that you differentiate, candidly, is that you write about situations that you've confronted and you're willing to share. People may not always agree with your conclusions, but you're willing to share the thought process that you had, the observations that you note, and some of the solutions as part of the idea that you're giving back, and this is free. And if somebody wants more specialized, more attentive focus, then of course they would expect to pay for the privilege of those services.
And talk about that. So talk about who you are today and how you help businesses succeed.
Happily. So taking those experiences that I brought from the military, have to admit some additional education as well. I had the benefit of working in corporate America in operational audits, which is a fancy term for basically saying the company or division is operating at X, it wants to operate at Y. How do we get there? Mm-hmm. And usually somebody is shepherding that. That's a nice way of sometimes saying that you're acting as the chief of staff and cracking a whip. Other times you're using a great deal of human relationship oriented ego. Right. Let's try to keep that to the sideline so that you help people out. But at the end of the day, not unlike what I was sharing with you during our break, we have a tendency to look at business through the idea there's a building and then there's people, and somehow the phones ring and then money starts coming in, and hopefully more money comes in than money's going out. Mm-hmm. But that is an oversimplification of a rather complex organism. Right. And that organism doesn't just end within the walls of that building that is that company or your idea. The more that you can see it on a holistic basis, the more that you look at it from an ecosystem, that has helped me very personally in elevating my A game so that I'm no longer in the business of transactions. In other words, you render me a service, how much does it cost? And then they pay you. That's not a real differentiator. So what becomes the differentiator is when you solve problems, usually very large problems that are either time consuming or can't be solved either through the politics of an organization or just candidly they've reached their level of capability. So if you offer suggestions as an advisor, had you thought of X? Have you talked to person 1, 2, and 3? These are readily embraced alternatives, and you get mastery of how you pose the observation so that it can be embraced by somebody that doesn't want to feel like they don't know what they're doing and who the heck are you to come into my organization right. and tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Well, in your book, Equity Value Enhancement, otherwise known as EVE, you talk about some of your experiences, and one of the things that you land on is the value of human capital. A lot of companies out there, small and large, make mistakes in hiring and firing. You come in and you can help them strategize around that, taking out the old, bringing in the new, and making sure that the new is really what it is that they're looking for. So for those companies, owners out there who might be listening, tell us about the services that you provide at that level.
I'd be happy to. I'd want to preface by saying that, God bless anybody that has taken the challenge of saying that I would like to be my own person. And they've dared greatly, as Teddy Roosevelt would say in one of his more famous speeches. At the end of the day, we all have to understand that we have both strengths and weaknesses, and one of our greatest weaknesses tends to be as business owners, and very common here in Southern California, is to create what is referred to as lifestyle businesses. I'll put it a different way. If you orient towards gratification over growth, you may have been successful in getting your business to 7 figures, in other words, $1 million or above in sales, maybe making a decent livelihood. But at some time in the future, you're going to run into a cap. And part that ceiling is a creation, oftentimes self-inflicted wound, in that you pull too much money, or rather what I call food up from the beast, away from the business into your own pocket. And not unlike a child, if it's malnourished, it's not going to grow and be all it can be. No pun intended. With the sorry guys on the Army side. But the point being is that if you can change that optics and recognize that if you take care of the beast, the business, and it becomes an opportunity that would be attractive to another party, so that you're working on the business as opposed to in the business, then you'll start spending more of your time and resources towards what type of people do I have, where do the gaps exist, where can I fill those gaps externally, like are these questions that I could pose to my banker, my insurance person, my CPA. There's a lot of low-lying fruit with little or no cost. And what I'm referencing is knowledge. And knowledge is what allows you to differentiate from your competitors, because if I can take essentially your company name and put another company name in its stead, and at the end of the day, we all say that we offer service, we offer price, we offer quality, that's no longer a differentiator. So if I can teach you to think in terms of how you're going to differentiate so that you can scale, and if the goal is to scale so that you have something valuable to show for usually your investment 5, 10, 25 years, it's a win for you. Obviously, it's a win for me because that's how I get compensated.
Outstanding. And I think you sit in rooms, and keep me honest here, Carl, you sit in rooms with billionaires, right? Who have
everything from early stage to, yes, billionaires.
Yeah. So again, companies, owners out there who are listening, Carl, how can they get a hold of you for your help and wisdom?
There's several ways to do that. For the most simplistic is take my name, Carl Sheeler, spelled CarlSheeler.com, and there is a first few chapters of the book that was referenced by Eve. Equity Value Enhancement is complimentary. If you like those ideas that we've shared today on the radio, those are complimentary. And if you like the book, obviously, you can order the book. If you want to reach me in my role as managing director of global advisory services, then it's C. Sheeler, still spelled the same way, at thinkbrg, Bravo Romeo Golf.com.
Outstanding, Carl. In the minute we have left, again, for our listeners, all that information will be on our Facebook page and our webpage. So if you missed it, you can go there and find that additional information about Carl. Give us the 60-second overview, because I think it's important what you're doing for veterans with PTSD with your nonprofit.
So an idea that I've had for close to a decade, and I'm putting to fruition now, that all the proceeds from Eve go towards a 501c3, which is funding a ranch in Colorado that will be offering equine therapy to those veterans, particularly combat veterans overcoming post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a passion that is becoming a reality.
Awesome. Carl Sheeler, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate all that you've done for our companies out there. And once again, if you want to reach out to Carl, it's carl@carlsheeler.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eve.
You're listening to Brave Radio, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs, or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, and we will be right back after this short break. Don't go away. Tired of your employees being late?
There was so much traffic.
Tired of poor excuses and poor presentations?
My kid ate my homework.
Tired of employees just not being able to handle the pressure?
You mean I gotta work a full 8 hours today?
Skip the hassles and excuses and hire individuals that are trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, adaptable to change, and focused on teamwork. Hire a veteran. More than just a patriotic gesture, hiring a veteran of the United States military comes with a host of benefits and tax credits, and can provide your company with valuable leadership, organization, and accountability. Allow the Brave to help your progressive business connect with qualified veteran candidates today, and find out more by visiting thebrave.us. That's THEBRAVE.us.
Easter Seals Work First Military and Veteran Services provides free one-on-one personalized employment assistance for local veterans through their Bob Hope Veteran Support Program. Easter Seals' team of employment specialists is dedicated to achieving successful long-term job placements that benefit both the veteran and the employer. Learn more about how you can receive services, connect with a future employee, or make a donation by visiting easterseals.com/SouthernCal. That's easterseals.com/SouthernCal.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
I need to hire someone. Our workload's increased, and man, I could use some help.
What are you looking for?
I need someone unlike Ben, who doesn't freak out, when the copier breaks and the phones are down and the receptionist calls in sick.
What do you need?
Leadership. I need a leader who can just get it done with little direction and ahead of time would be great. With the prima donnas floating around our department like Sally and Jason, it's a challenge, man, to get things done. I need a team player, trained in leadership, confident in their abilities, and adaptable to change.
You know, there's only one place you're going to find talent like that.
Show me where.
Our United States veterans. Call Eve right now at 619-244-3000 or log on to thebrave.us and let's hire a veteran. It's good for business. It's good for America.
Brave is a part of America's largest service-disabled veteran-owned business, Merit Consulting. We are dedicated to placing great companies with great veterans. Call today. Welcome back. You're listening to Brave Radio, where we focus on matching veteran talent with innovative companies that make a difference in our community and in our nation. Follow us on Twitter at Brave Jobs or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. We're here in studio with our good friend Richard March. Richard, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Eve. It's great to be here.
Well, as we like to feature amazing veterans, you are an amazing veteran. So please tell us about you, about your veteran experience, and then how that prepared you for what you're doing today.
Well, thank you very much once again, Eve. It's great to be here. But my veteran experience started back in 1984. I served in the U.S. Army.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, that's where I did my basic training. I was a petroleum supply specialist.
Is that a gas station attendant or
absolutely, for lack of a better term. Yes, we were refueling aircrafts and making
That's like the coolest job because you get to work around the airplanes.
Yes,
right?
It was really cool, especially when we had the opportunity to do what I call sling loading, when aircrafts would hover over you and we would place things on a hook.
What?
On the aircrafts. Oh,
As
yes.
they're hovering over you.
Yes, that's why I lost my hair. I mean, all
it was the afterburner on the F-18 that you're trying to... Wait, those don't hover. How about the AV-8 Harrier, right?
But it was a really, really great experience. And I served a little over 3 years in the military. I knew that a military career is not what I wanted, but it was also a very good place for me to start.
Right.
I fathered early. I married early. And the military was a place that gave me that jump start that I needed to provide for my family.
Right. That's great. And so now, after your harrowing escape from the AV-8 Harriers jets and losing all your hair, you've got 5 kids. You've got two grandkids?
Three
grandkids.
Yes, all daughters, 3 granddaughters.
And you look like you're, 20. You're amazing.
Really?
Yes. So now you're a trainer and you're an educator and you write training curriculums. You do amazing things for our companies. So let's jump into that. Let's first talk about your company, RDM Management Group.
Yes, RDM Management Group is a sales consulting company and was really birthed similar to sort of the acronyms or the belief that the Brave radio station has, which is to educate and to inspire. I have been in sales for more than 30 years, sales and sales management.
There goes my you're 20 years old theory.
Yes. And sales was a career, even which I chose because separating from the military, I needed a way to provide for my family. I heard about this, this business or this profession called sales, and it gave you an opportunity to earn unlimited income. Little did I know when I ventured into sales, it was sort of easier said than done. But one of the things that really helped me transition from the military into a sales career is that the military helped me focus on those disciplines. So when I was in the military, we had a job that we had to do, and we had to do that job exact.
Right.
Or there could be catastrophic challenges behind that. So when I got into the business of sales, most companies that I work for, they had what I refer to as a sales playbook. And it would tell you how to properly sell and represent that product and service. And I was able to just focus on that material and sort of master it, if you will. And I transitioned from a really good salesperson to a really, really good sales leader. And so over the past 30 years, I've learned and I practiced and I've experienced and I have helped companies grow their business in the arena of sales and sales management.
I think the leader, sorry to interrupt, but I want to emphasize for the listeners out there who are looking to hire a veteran, one of the qualities and traits that a veteran possesses is leadership.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you get into these positions, and then by the very nature of the military, you're promoted, because if you're doing your job right and well, you get promoted, and you get promoted into areas of leadership where you're responsible for things or for people, right? And so that was just this natural progression for you in sales.
Yes, it was. And those disciplines, I mean, they equally were important. And so when I became a sales leader, I started to coach and train those same disciplines with my direct reports to help them be successful. It's really interesting. In the business of sales, this may sound contradictory to some degree, but I never managed by the number. I always knew what my quota was. My employees always, or direct reports, knew what their quota was, but I managed their behavior. And I moved those roadblocks out of the way. I made sure that I understood them and understood what motivated them. And by focusing in on those individuals and helping or understanding, relating to them, that really helped me and helped them, more importantly, meet and exceed their objective.
Okay, so that just flips everything upside down. For those of you who are in sales or have anything to do with sales, it's all about the numbers. And what you just said is, Eve, it's not about the numbers. I help them alter their behavior, which then equals the numbers.
Absolutely. Everyone that I've ever hired or had the opportunity to work with, we always knew what our number was. That is important. Now, you do have to know your number, but I did not manage by the number. And there's a difference.
Boy, is there.
And that difference is that, a lot of leaders that I have had the opportunity to work for and work with, and I'm not taking anything away from them, is that they constantly, day after day, week after the week, month after month, sort of just hammer in the number. Where are you on your number? And you sort of live by the number, you die by the number. And the number is really important. Again, I've had a quota my entire 30 plus years in sales, and I've always met or exceeded my objective as an individual, more importantly, as a leader. But when you manage the behavior, you really understand that individual and what's important to them. What are the intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors? Why are they in this particular role? Is it a means to an end? Or are they helping to pay their house note, their mortgage, or are they paying their kids' tuition? All of those things is really important. Now, how does that translate to them being able to communicate properly with a client for the very first time? Well, again, it goes back to those disciplines, as I mentioned to you back in the military. There are certain disciplines that you have to have in sales. And some of those disciplines, again, you do have to be motivated, right. You also have to do the right things right for the right reason. I call it funnel management, or you have to manage your funnel. You have to, more importantly, manage your activity. There are certain things that you have to do in order to be successful in the business of sales. You have to network. You have to communicate with people. You have to, more importantly, focus on what their concerns are and not necessarily yours. And that's where a lot of us salespeople miss it sometimes, is that they're so caught up on them. Hey, I need to meet my objective, because if I don't, I'm not going to keep my job.
Right.
Well, that may be a dose of reality,
right.
But more importantly, you have to focus on what's important to the client, to that prospect that's in front of you. And if you can solve their problems and solve their issues and or concerns with your product or service, usually that's a win-win situation.
You're listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170, streaming live on the web at am1170theanswer.com. Follow us on Twitter at BraveJobs, or like us on Facebook to stay up to date with the latest news and trends. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, here with Richard from RDM Management. I want to talk about how you've taken all of this experience and your training and your management, and you've turned it into a curriculum for Point Loma Nazarene. That's pretty cool.
Yes, that was really great. And I guess I'm really transparent. And what I mean by that, I like to share with people the things that I do that allows me to win business. And it actually started with a Reboot. And I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Love Maurice Wilson. Go Maurice.
Yes, he's a fantastic gentleman. He gave me the opportunity to be also one of their facilitators. That's one of the other things that I do, Eve. I facilitate curriculum for other businesses as well. And so with working with Maurice, I graduated in the Reboot class back in May 1st of 2015. And that class was held at the Point Loma Nazarene location.
Okay.
And I was voted the class spokesperson, primarily because most of my cohorts knew that I was a motivational speaker. They know I love training and coaching, and they thought I would be the perfect person to represent them for the graduation. So long story short, there were a couple of questions that the students had regarding some curriculum that Point Loma Nazarene presented. And since I was a spokesperson, I had to actually go and get those questions answered. Well, in doing so, I met the person that was in charge of the extended learning program. And her name is Nikki Shimazaki. And her and I was able to build a relationship after I graduated from Point Loma. After I graduated from Reboot. So I actually went back, met with her, had a coffee, and we actually discussed my curriculum and how it could potentially be offered to their audience. And so, long story short, she said yes. And not only did she say yes, I'm also an instructor for Point Loma Nazarene University. And basically, they have taken some of my curriculum and even offer it in their talent development seminars, which are 3-hour seminars that they offer to private businesses. And I actually go and facilitate my own curriculum to Point Loma's customers as well.
So I want to call you Professor Richard now, right? Buy one of those little funny hats. That is impressive. And I want to back up for a second because you actually put what you're teaching into motion, into action, and it produced a positive result for you. And what I mean by that is you represented somebody else unselfishly on behalf of Reboot. You went to Point Loma, not for your own good. It was for Operation Reboot, right?
Yes.
And out of that, because of your networking skills, you were able to connect the dots. And now that action has produced results, not only for Reboot, but for you. And I think our listeners are benefiting from this right now, because if you've got an opportunity to do something good for someone else, chances are those connections will come back and be able to bless you.
Absolutely. And the blessing is the key thing. And that's the whole, principle that we live by, is to help others accomplish their goals. And if you do so unselfishly, you have the opportunity to take care of your own house as well. And so I do believe in obviously taking care of my business. I mean, that's really important, but I also believe in serving and helping others. And by doing so, again, I always get what's coming to me, good, bad, or indifferent.
You reap what you sow, more than what you sow, later than what you sow. So we all need to remember that. So in the few minutes that we have left, tell us a little bit more about a company. Perhaps somebody's listening right now. Maybe their sales are struggling, or maybe a salesperson is listening and they're getting discouraged and despondent, and they need this extra push or extra education. Talk about what you can do, not only for the individuals, but also for the companies themselves.
Well, a very good question. Sales is a process. And obviously, sometimes we like immediate gratification. And in many of the sales opportunities that I've won throughout my career, again, it was a process. And so with my relationships with Reboot or Point Loma, or even having the opportunity to speak with you, Eve. I mean, you and I, we met over a year ago, and then now, here we are in this great day where we have the opportunity to interact and network with one another. So sales is a process. So that's number one. So I encourage patience. But within that, my 33 course curriculum is broken into 3 sessions. One section is called the Sales Foundation. And the Sales Foundation is really understanding who you are as an individual or as a business, and what are your goals and some of your obstacles and challenges in which you face. And we really have to understand that and sort of pull back the onion, if you will, to really get to the core of the issue and the challenge. The second phase of it is the sales process. I refer to that as the meat and the potatoes. So in the sales process, we're going to talk about understanding the competition, prospecting, cold calling, listening skills, negotiation skills, handling objections. Those things are really important, and that's where a lot of people just sort of rely upon and struggle in that particular area. And so I really help them understand it from a basic principle and understanding that the seeds you plant today, they will sprout tomorrow. Now, you want to plant a variety of different seeds. You just don't want to focus on one individual type of seeds. Good and point. At any given time, your farm or the things that you've planted, that could be, one may need sunshine, the other one may need water, the other one you may need to talk to the plant.
Weed eater.
Absolutely. Move that thing out of there.
Right, exactly.
And a long story short, you really have to understand where your businesses are, where your potential prospects are, and then meet them on their terms. That's really important. And once you understand what their obstacles and challenges are, chances are it gets you closer to winning their business. And then finally is the sales sustainability. As I mentioned to you before, I've been in sales for well over 30 years. And like you said, I may not look perhaps my age, but I am my age. But one of those things I've been able to do is really enjoy the work-life balance. I work hard, but I play hard as well. I enjoy my family. I enjoy my friends. I have a spiritual connection. Those things are really important for the balance of life and to remain healthy mentally. And so when I'm speaking to a prospect or a client or a customer, they get the essence of me. It's not high-pressured sales at all whatsoever. It's relationship building. And if there's an opportunity to move the business forward, then I'm going to do the best job I can possibly do that. But if not, that's okay as well. Perhaps I can refer you to someone else, or perhaps they can refer me to someone else. I'm looking at, I believe, at the lifetime value of a customer. And that's about relationship building, not only now, but into the future.
I love what you do. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to your roots as a veteran, also as a person, that level of integrity that you operate with. People like to do business with people that they like. You operate with integrity. People like that. And so I believe that's one of the tenets of your success is your level of integrity. So we're running out of time. So please let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you for your training and your mentorship and your wisdom.
Well, the easiest way is my website is www.rdmmanagementgroup.com. My email address is richard@rdmmanagementgroup.com. My telephone number is 619-408-8567. And then finally, we're having, we being Point Loma and we're putting on a continuing education credit, and clients will be able to go to a 2-day seminar, which is scheduled for March 31st and April the 1st from 8 to 1. The cost is $299. And when they walk away or go into this classroom environment, there's 2 days of jam-packed of information, interactive as well. And then they will walk out with a continuing education credit, compliments of Point Loma Nazarene University.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Eve.
All right. I'm Eve Nasby, and you've been listening to Brave Radio here on KCBQ AM 1170 The Answer. If you want to find out more about how you can hire top veteran talent, or if you're interested in being a guest on our show, visit our website at www.thebrave.us. Send us a tweet at Brave Jobs or like our Facebook page. From all of our guests and me, thanks for joining us. And until next Monday, may God bless our veterans and God bless America.
Thanks for listening to Brave Radio. If you know a veteran looking for work, or if your company is hiring, call Eve at Brave at 619-244-3000. Give her a tweet at Brave Jobs and connect with them on Facebook. To be a guest on the show, visit thebrave.us.